On September 15, 2025, Donald Trump filed a defamation lawsuit against the New York Times. Trump alleges the Times published 37 false and defamatory statements in one book and 3 news articles written about him. Some of the statements Trump is claiming are defamatory are as follows. Quote, Mr. Trump got an early start learning how to cut corners. As a high school student at New York Military Academy, he knowingly borrowed a friend's dress jacket with a dozen medals attached to wear for his yearbook photo, in effect appropriating medals that he did not win himself. End quote. Quote, he likewise cheated to get into college, according to his estranged niece, Mary L. Trump. He paid a friend to take the SAT for him, Ms. Trump asserted in her own book, earning a score that later helped him transfer to Wharton Business School at the University of Pennsylvania, a credential he has boasted about ever since. End quote. Quote, tenants at the Pembroke and Hague Towers blamed the Trumps for infestations of cockroaches and mice, a broken air conditioning system, elevators that did not work, a lack of hot water, and an unusable swimming pool. End quote. Quote, Donald had just directed his siblings to sell the dozens of buildings their late father had left them in trust funds, a betrayal of Fred Trump's wishes to keep his empire in the family. Donald Trump, 4 years after his father's death, orchestrated the private sale for $738 million. It was a huge number, but the buyers' banks valued the buildings at about $975 million, raising a question about Mr. Trump's claim to have mastered the art of the deal. Donald Trump, the self-described world's greatest dealmaker, had sold the bulk of his father's empire for almost $250 million less than it was worth. End quote. Quote, sometimes, despite himself, Donald Trump received his fortune mostly outside of his ability to run a business. The secret of his life, one that emerges in hundreds of moments, big and small, is that the less he has been involved in decision-making, the better his chances of financial success. End quote. Quote, with no real estate or financial staff at his disposal, Donald's assessment of a potential opportunity started and stopped at the end of his nose. There would be no deliberative planning and very little in the way of an analysis of risks or potential return on investment. End quote. Quote, even as his father's chosen successor and the child who benefited the most from his father's wealth, Donald accelerated his long efforts to erase his father's accomplishments from the public consciousness in service of artificially inflating his own. End quote. Quote, late in the summer of 2003, a team of television producers stepped off the elevator on the 26th floor of Trump Tower, eager to survey the set of their next reality show. After years filming Survivor in jungles around the world, training cameras on exotic spiders and deadly snakes to evoke danger, they came looking for a different set of sensory clues, the tiny details that would convey wealth and power. Right away, they knew they had a problem. The first thing they noticed was the stench, a musty and moldy carpet smell that followed them like an invisible cloud. Then they spotted scores of chips in the finish of the wooden desks and credenzas. The decor felt long out of date, making the space seem like a time capsule from when Donald J. Trump opened the building. End quote. Quote, at the office's spiritual center, Mr. Trump's own desk bore no evidence of work, no computer screens or piles of contracts and blueprints, just a blanket of news articles focused on one subject, himself. End quote. Quote, beyond the studio space, the harder work of reinventing Trump had only just begun. Trump typically lied or fuzzed the fact that he did not own the construction projects and was not the developer, creating the illusion that he was everywhere, buying properties, taking on risk, and pouring concrete. The producers would need to invent a version of Donald Trump that did not actually exist, measured, thoughtful, and endlessly wealthy. A complete rehabilitation of his public image. Skilled hands created a version of Donald Trump, diligent, measured, polite but authoritative, that might have been non-existent but was highly marketable. Mr. Trump would need only to play a recrafted version of himself. Alas, Trump began playing a wealthy tycoon on television. End quote. Quote, Mark Burnett's The Apprentice fortified Trump's fact-free bubble, while also making it national and bankable in ways that Trump never did on his own. Mr. Trump had mostly luck to credit for being discovered, at age 57, by Mark Burnett, then the hottest name in the hottest new television genre. End quote. Quote, the business model that Burnett had spent the prior decade perfecting, selling corporations on the value of letting him weave their products into his show, was about to make Trump the equivalent of a second inheritance. And as when Trump was born, other people would do all the work. End quote. Quote, Mr. Trump was on his way to collect more than $200 million from The Apprentice, and an even quirkier offshoot, Celebrity Apprentice, as host for over more than a decade. Thanks to his rehabilitated image, he would earn another $200 million from licensing and endorsement deals. That lucky windfall, similar in size to his inheritance and also requiring no business expertise, funded a new wave of Trump-run businesses. End quote. Quote, here's the part that may sting the most in a country that sees itself as history's greatest meritocracy. Good things happened to Donald Trump. He did not earn most of those good things. He was born, he was discovered by a revolutionary television producer, and he was pushed into an investment against his will. And from those 3 bits of good luck came the equivalent today of more than $1.5 billion. That sort of tailwind could paper over a litany of failure and still fund a lavish life. And there is no evidence that in 50 years of labor, Donald Trump added to his lucky fortunes. He would have been better off betting on the stock market than himself, end quote. Quote, Trump made admiring statements about Hitler, had expressed contempt for disabled veterans, and had characterized those who died on the battlefield for the United States as losers and suckers, end quote. Trump is seeking more than $15 billion in damages and is seeking litigation costs.